Snow fell in slow, tired flakes against the city streets that night, soft, silent, and merciless. The kind of cold that didn't just touch your skin but slipped beneath it, right into your bones. Matthew Hale pulled his coat tighter around himself as he stepped out of his office building, one hand holding a tiny pink mitten that clung to his fingers. "Come on. Pumpkin," he said, smiling down at his 6-year-old daughter. "We'll miss the train." Little Emily skipped beside him, her pigtails bouncing, her laughter soft and innocent against the hum of the city. Matthew worked hard to make sure she still laughed like that, freely. After losing his wife 2 winters ago, laughter had become rare in their home. But Emily, she was light, his reason for breathing. They crossed the busy street toward the station, the lights flickering gold in the frost. That's when Emily suddenly stopped, tugging at his hand. "Daddy," she whispered. Matthew followed her gaze. Under a bus shelter, huddled on the frozen bench, sat a young woman clutching a bundle wrapped in a worn blanket. Her clothes were thin, her hair damp with melting snow, and her lips trembled with the kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from one bad night, but from months of trying to survive. The baby in her arms whimpered softly, Emily's eyes filled with worry. "Daddy, her baby's freezing." Matthew's throat tightened. People were walking past, dozens of them, pretending not to see. He sighed softly, torn between reason and the ache in his chest. He was supposed to get Emily home, keep her warm, keep her safe. But his daughter's tiny voice broke through all logic. "Please, Daddy. We have to help her." He nodded slowly. "Okay, sweetheart." He approached carefully. "Ma'am?" The woman startled, clutching her baby closer. Her eyes were red from crying. I'm sorry. We'll move if we have to. Just needed somewhere dry for the night." No, it's okay," Matthew said gently. "Are you all right?" "Do you need help?" She hesitated. I was trying to get to the shelter, but they're full. My baby's only 3 months old. We've been outside since morning." Emily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, can we take them home, please?" Matthew looked at the woman, at the child in her arms, at the shaking hands, at the quiet despair that only someone truly lost carries. And he realized maybe he wasn't meant to just walk away. He took a breath. "What's your name?" "Lila," she whispered. "All right, Lila," he said softly. "You're coming with us." "It's too cold to stay here." Her eyes widened. "Sir, I can't." "It's okay," he interrupted. "You and your baby need warmth. My daughter won't sleep tonight if we don't help you. Trust me." Emily smiled proudly as if she'd just saved the world. Back at their apartment, Matthew made hot chocolate while Lila sat near the heater,
gently rocking her baby, a little girl named Hope. Emily sat beside her,
wrapping one of her old blankets around the baby, whispering little things like, "It's okay. You're safe now." Matthew watched quietly. The way Lila looked at her child, with fierce love and quiet pain, it stirred something in him he hadn't felt in a long time. Later that night, after Emily had gone to bed, Lila stood in the doorway of the living room. "Thank you," she whispered. "No one's ever done something like this for me." "You don't have to thank me," Matthew said. "Anyone would have done the same." She gave him a sad smile. "No, they wouldn't." Over the next few days, Matthew found himself looking forward to their presence, to the sound of the baby's soft coos, to Emily's giggles as she played big sister. He learned that Lila had lost her job when she got pregnant, that her partner had left before the baby was born, and she'd been trying to survive ever since. Matthew helped her find warm clothes, food, and eventually an interview at his company. She was hesitant, ashamed, but he believed in her, the way she carried herself, the quiet determination in her voice. Weeks passed. Lila got the job. She moved into a small apartment nearby. But Emily never let a day go by without asking to visit. One evening, as they sat together at dinner, Matthew, Emily, Lila, and baby Hope, Emily looked up with her wide, innocent eyes. "Daddy," she said suddenly, "can Lila and baby Hope stay forever?" Matthew froze, caught off guard. Lila blushed deeply, eyes lowering to her plate. He cleared his throat, smiling faintly. "Why do you ask that, Pumpkin?" "Because," Emily said matter-of-factly, "they make you smile again. And I think baby Hope needs a daddy too." Lila's eyes shimmered. Matthew reached across the table, taking her hand gently. Maybe, he said softly. We all needed each other more than we knew. Months later, spring melted away the snow, and laughter once again filled Matthew's home, louder, warmer, real. Emily had a new best friend in baby Hope, and Lila had found not just safety, but love. Sometimes miracles don't come with grand gestures. Sometimes they begin with a little girl's voice saying, "Daddy, her baby's freezing." Lila blinked back tears as she looked around the dinner table, her heart so full it hurt. For the first time in months, she wasn't worrying about where she'd sleep, what she'd eat, or how she'd keep her baby warm. There was laughter, soft music playing from the kitchen, and Emily's giggles echoing through the house as she fed baby Hope mashed potatoes with the seriousness of a nurse. Matthew stood by the window, the city lights glimmering behind him, watching his daughter and the two souls who had somehow become part of his life. He didn't understand how quickly everything had changed, how a single act of kindness on a freezing night had rewritten the quiet sadness of his days. When Lila joined him by the window, her voice was quiet. "You didn't have to do all this, you know. I would have been fine." He turned to her, his expression soft. "You wouldn't have been fine. And I wouldn't have forgiven myself if I'd walked away." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "You barely knew me." Matthew looked toward Emily and the baby, then back at her. "Sometimes you don't need to know someone to know they belong in your life." There was silence, gentle, comfortable silence, filled with unspoken gratitude and something warmer, something neither of them dared to name yet. Over the following weeks, their lives intertwined even more naturally. Lila proved herself at work, efficient, kind, humble, and before long, everyone in the office adored her. Matthew tried to stay professional, but each time their eyes met across a meeting room, he felt the same spark that had begun that night in the snow. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Matthew found Lila sitting in the park with Hope in her lap, reading softly to her. Emily ran circles around them, laughing, a blur of light and joy. He stopped a few feet away and just watched, the warmth, the peace, the life that had quietly found its way back into his heart. When she noticed him, Lila smiled. "You're early. I was hoping to catch you before you left," he said, sitting down beside her. Hope giggled and reached for his finger. Emily immediately ran over and plopped down next to them. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" He smiled. "Only if Lila says yes." Lila laughed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I think we've earned it." As they walked together down the street, Matthew couldn't stop glancing at her, at the way she smiled at Emily, how naturally she held Hope, how her laughter filled spaces he hadn't realized were empty. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Matthew stood on the balcony, hands in his pockets. The door creaked softly behind him. "Can't sleep?" Lila's voice floated through the cool air. He smiled without turning. "You too?" She stepped beside him. "It's hard to sleep when your life suddenly feels safe again." He looked at her then, his gaze steady. "You deserve safe, Lila. You deserve more than that." Her eyes shimmered with quiet emotion. "You've already given me more than I ever thought I'd have." He hesitated, then reached for her hand. "You've given me something too. You brought light back into my home, into Emily's life, into mine." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't pull away. "You really think so?" He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "I know so." Months turned into a year. Seasons changed. The apartment that had once felt too quiet became a home filled with love, warmth, and laughter. Emily and Hope were inseparable, calling each other sisters long before the adults made anything official. And on a bright spring afternoon, in that same park where their story had quietly grown roots, Matthew knelt on one knee as Emily stood beside him. Holding a small box with shaking hands, Lila gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Lila," Matthew said softly, "you and Hope came into our lives on the coldest night of the year, but you brought warmth that never left. I don't want to spend another day without you. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Emily jumped and clapped, shouting, "We did it, Daddy!" Now baby Hope's really my sister. Laughter, tears, and joy tangled together in the spring air, and as Matthew pulled Lila into his arms, he realized that the night Emily had tugged on his sleeve and said, "Daddy, her baby's freezing," wasn't the night he saved someone. It was the night they all were saved, because sometimes The smallest act of compassion doesn't just change another person's life, it brings you home too.